correct. Lovely.
Sorry, just before you go on,
Yeah.
I should have introduced Phil. We've already met before as an observer. Liz is here today and tomorrow. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent.
Great.
So Liz is here for the weekend.
Good.
Good. We've got room here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here.
I don't bite, I haven't been fed.
He's just destroyed his book.
Oh, no.
So I've got a hanky in here. Might not look like
We wanted to have a session on style and interpretation, and we can't do that across the board, so we've opted to go for Renaissance music because how many of you actually conduct quite a bit of Renaissance music? Good, good. It's interesting though that the majority don't. So for most choirs, Renaissance music is the earliest music they tackle. A lot of the bigger choirs don't tackle it often at all. So I thought it would be useful to talk about it, and partly from my own experience of hearing a lot of choirs do it. I often hear two extremes. One is a performance which feels very fussy, where the conductor really superimposes lots of dynamic changes and a bit of rubato, fiddle faddles, I'd say, with it. And then the other extreme, which is what I normally hear more, is that it's profoundly dull. So the conductor stands there and they have a lovely flow and the singers just sing it all through, but there is no substance to the piece whatsoever. So I thought, I wonder whether people don't quite know what to do with it. Would it be worth a talk? All I can do is share how I have come to approach it. This is neither right nor wrong. This is just, I don't know what's right or wrong even, and I wouldn't claim it, but this is how I approach it. Because it's taken me personally a while to get into Renaissance music as well. And I've had to find ways of helping myself find a roadmap through it. First thing I don't do is, and it's part of why we've dismissed Simon for a few minutes, is I never, ever, ever go to the piano and play it. Two reasons for that: I'm a rubbish piano player, so it wouldn't help me anyway. But secondly, that is not the starting point. The starting point for the composer was the text, referring back to what Peter said. So I feel that should be my starting point. So before leaping into any decisions about how I should perform the notes, I look at the text and I make lots of observations. I thought we'd use a piece out of the Victoria, which is page 355, just as an example of a piece that I might analyse in this way. First of all, when I look at the text, I think it's really important to look at the origins of where the particular passage is that the composer said. Where's that come from? What's the context in which that piece would have been performed? Because that immediately sets the mood. I see at the top of this very helpful edition, it says Antiphon at Vespers, and then it also says All Saints' Day. Now that immediately gives me a clue as to mood of the piece. Vespers is an evening service, but All Saints' Day is actually quite a remarkable celebration that would have been celebrated very voluptuously in the major cathedrals, certainly of Italy and Spain. So I get a feeling that, yes, it's a Vespers text, there's probably going to be a mood of contemplation in it, but this is also a feast day. So my instinct might be to perhaps be very somber, but I need to have that element of, no, feast day as well. It really helps me get into it. Secondly, with the text, never, never, never rely on a translation, no matter how good the editor, because the translations, I have to say, they're not that great in this book. For all I love this book, they tend to take a broad brushstroke approach and give you the gist of the text, but what you really need to know is the word-for-word translation. Because you need to know where the key words are that the composer has responded to, and only word for word will do that. Now you may say, but I don't read Latin. That's fine, you've got the gist, so that's really helpful to have that. Find a dictionary, and with the gist and the dictionary, you can work out where the key words are and ring then. So that is really, really important. Now, if I go through this piece and I do word for word translation, it's slightly different from what you've got in front of me. Word for word would be, for O quam gloriosum est regnum, and oh how glorious is the kingdom. And then the next bit, in quo cum Christo, in which with Christ, gaudent, rejoice, omnes sancti, all the saints. So, oh how glorious is the kingdom in which, with Christ, rejoice all the saints. The next bit, beginning verse 28. Amictis stollis albis, clothed in fur of white.
What was that again, Tony?
Clothed in fur of white. Sequuntur arnium, they follow the Lamb. And the last bit, which kicks off around about bar 46, quocumque ierit, wherever that Lamb leads. So, oh how glorious is the kingdom in which, with Christ, rejoice all the saints. Clothed in fur of white, they follow the Lamb wherever he shall lead. So I've got my word-for-word translation. Do I understand any of that? I often say to my students, tell me about the text. And what they'll do is they'll go, oh, how glorious is the kingdom. No. Tell me about the text. What's it talking about? I think we have to make sure that we understand the imagery. And for me, truly understand the imagery. And for me, I find it very helpful to imagine a painting of the scene that is set. And I can now see, if I think in that way, that I'm looking at an image of heaven, I think, in which all the saints are in this fantastic procession. They followed Christ faithfully, usually up to the point of death, all their lives. And they are now transformed in heaven to appear like the Lamb of God. That's why they are dressed in white. They've sacrificed themselves, and like the sacrificial Lamb of Christ, they have adopted the same, or been allowed to wear the same clothing as Christ. And they follow him in heaven, wherever he leads. So just as they followed him to that dreadful point, possibly of death, they are now taken into heaven and they continue to follow him. So it's symbolism which has the hint of the suffering in it, but actually the way the saints have been transformed leads me again, when I'm thinking of the overall mood of the piece, that this is actually quite celebratory. I mustn't get too dark on this one. We're looking at a scene of transformation. Revealing this to my singers, I think, is incredibly important. So I will often sit with them, and I know you probably won't believe me, but I promise I do. At the beginning of a rehearsal of a Renaissance piece, we will sit and have a chat about that imagery, because I really, really want them to have the same pictures and feeling about it in their minds as I have. And when I just stand, and everyone's just thinking, right, when are we going to get on with the notes? When are we going to get on with the notes? There's that feeling of impatience, shut up talking. But if I just sit and we have a chat like this, I feel that they're going to be more on board with it. So it's worth just changing the dynamic of whether you sit and stand and how you talk to text with your singers. You can't do this in a huge choral society, but the chamber choir, you definitely can. Having started with the text, I then love, because the text is the structure of a Renaissance piece. We mustn't think of these pieces in classical terms, that there's a beginning, probably a development of themes, a climax at some point, and then a resolution. Renaissance pieces don't work like that. Their structure is that sentence by sentence, that is the structure. And so you end up with funny little structures of all different magical sort of shapes and sizes, depending on where the text has led the composer. So what I'd like to do is draw a little map. I won't show you this in detail because it's very, very scruffy. But I'll just show you the principles of this, because I don't like boring analysis. I try and make analysis fun. And I take the text and I think, where has Victoria started a new musical idea? And I start to etch out. I have a line like this. That's the piece, and you can't see, but there are little bars here. So I know that bars 1 to 9 or 1 to 10 is that portion of text. And then Victoria seems to kick off with a new idea. If we look at the score, bar 9, there seems to be a new musical idea starting here. In Quo Cum Christo. So that little section is there, and I give the relevant bar, the text is written underneath. And then I'm interested, we've got a new idea, the word gaudent. Suddenly Victoria goes mad in bar 18. But that seems to be a little idea all by itself, so I've given it a little section all by itself. And then we've got the omne sancti there. And then the next piece, idea, is amicti stollis albis, so I give that a little section. And then at the text, secuntur arnium, that seems to have its own little section. And then the final words, quocunque ierit, has its own little section. So two things, if I do that, if I bother to write that text out, honestly it's the work of 2 minutes, so it's not a great hardship. Two things instantly strike me as quite interesting. I begin to get an in into what Victoria might have been excited by. These two final sections, you can see, seem to take up a big proportion of his effort. If I hadn't done this little map, I might not have quite got that soon enough. And those are the sections dealing with they follow the Lamb wherever he shall lead. It seems to be quite interesting, but wherever he shall lead and for how many bars. Victoria thought this was a really important concept. The other thing that immediately grabs my attention is that gaudent, this one word, is given its own musical idea. Yes, it's only got a short section, but nevertheless that was an important word for the composer. So that helps me try and get into his mind and think what was important to him needs to be important to me. Marking very clearly where the new ideas are in the score is something that is incredibly important for me to know, and I think it's just as important for the choir to know. So along my little sheet, which you can have a look at later, at the end of that first section I've written a big T. If we look at it in the score, this is bar 9. Tenors are the first ones to kick off with the new material, in Quo Cum Christo. So I put a little T there, he's got the new idea. Now I'm interested because actually there's an old idea, the regnum is still finishing up. You can see if you look at your score, the first idea, the new sentence cuts into it. That's important for me to know. I know if I put that T there that I might need to shade the other parts down. Otherwise that new bit of structure won't be revealed. It'll be completely lost. It's important to me to try and reveal the structure that the composers put in. So I've put a little decrescendo and a T in my little map that I'm thinking about. The next section is the same. If we go through the In Quo Cum Christo, the gaudent, which is the new idea starting in bar 18. Interestingly, he makes the tenors kick off. He obviously had a lively tenor section. They wanted to get in, so he gives them that idea. But again, you can see that the In Quo Cum Christo idea is still dribbling on. A tiny bit of overhang there. If I want that new idea to come through, I've got two options. I either tell the tenors to sing incredibly loudly, which might be a bit vulgar, or I make sure I just balance the other parts down a bit. Basically, in Renaissance music, all parts are equal. I mean, that goes without saying. All parts are equal, but there are times when one part needs to stick out. And the start of a new idea, if it's given to one voice, I do think that needs to have presence. So that has a bearing on my interpretation.
Can I just ask you something about that? There was an article that Peter gave us, I think it's towards the beginning of the course, there's an article about score study, and one of them referred to some sections of the Palestrinias, and it said something like the cadential voice should have some prominence. What do you understand by the term the cadential voice?
Oh, good. That was my reaction.
Well, they're all prudential, but
Yes.
because you can't make a cadence all on your own, because it depends. The composer definitely has sense of cadence in the way parts. There's not often a suspension which resolves onto a point of repose, and that's not one voice, that's several voices. So I don't understand that. No. I'm so glad you don't understand.
I think I might have
feel
been
like a
talking, I'll
complete
show you
fool
it.
then.
Maybe
Yeah.
break at lunch, I'll show you them.
Yeah, no. Anyway, don't get that. So go through your plan, marking out who kicks off new ideas. Omne Sancti, isn't it interesting? Bar 23. That the word omnes, with most composers, you'd expect them to come in absolutely all voices together on that. And he nearly does it. So he's had a very exciting Gaudent, lots of polyphony and all the voices working. And he begins to pull the voices together on the word omnes, which means all. He begins to pull it together. You've got two voices and then the tenors, then the altos. So you get a sense of Vittoria definitely pulling the texture together. That seems to me something that I would get excited by and that might reflect later in the kind of richness of the texture that I might employ. And Micti Stolis Albis, that's all together. So I just marked that in my little roadmap. The next idea, Sequuntur Arnium. That's very interesting to me that the tenors yet again kick that off. So I've just written that there. And then finally, the final idea, Quocunque Ierit. The basses, at last a different voice part gets it. So they will follow Christ wherever he shall lead, even unto the bass parts. This is remarkable. You get the sense of Vittoria, who I think was a composer aware of tessitura and vocal quality by some of the richness of what he places his chords. You get a lovely sense of the piece winding down, quite literally, giving the bass the lead there. So this little map proves to be quite interesting. Every single little word stress is then where I'd start. So that's, again, I still haven't got anywhere near the piano. I'm still fascinated in just looking at it. I'll just say one more thing about that. It seems to me that the minute I play that thing, I'm not getting a choral sound in my head anyway, so that's spoiling my own oral imagination about how it could go. The other alternative is to get on Spotify, all too easy, actually. I really think it's too easy now. I'm going to sound like a right old bag. It's too easy now to go and listen to it. Now, the minute I do that, I get somebody else's response to this text going on in my head. And that's completely spoiled my relationship with Vittoria, because up until now I haven't referred to anyone else. And I feel me and Vittoria are just beginning to get a relationship. I'm beginning to understand what might be important to him. But it's ruined the minute I go and hear somebody else's interpretation. The time for that is once I've had my thoughts. And then I'm quite allowed to test my ideas against somebody else's. That's a lovely thing to do.
What someone suggested to me once actually is that if you really do feel the need to listen to recordings, is to listen to as many different ones rather than just getting fixed on one particular recording.
Yeah.
So you're not getting...
Only when you know it.
Yeah.
Only when you know.
Only when you've made your own decisions, and then you're testing yourself against them. So I think it's really important not to
It's
start
terribly important.
anybody's idea, because if you listen to a lot of different ones, then you're just confused
Yeah.
until you know what the music says to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just drop
Yes,
one
please.
also stylistic thing in there? This is, and that is that there is the cadential in the middle. There's a clear cadential point on sancti.
Yeah.
And stylistically, it's quite appropriate to actually put a pause there on that chord, and then a clean start on the Micti Stolis Albis.
Yeah.
It's not necessary to do it, but it is
No, I think,
perfectly.
yeah.
I got that from George Malcolm actually set up, so he was very keen on the sort of idea that because of that very clear cadence, and that happens quite a lot in music of this period, where because of course they didn't write pauses and they didn't write things up, and they didn't have bar lines anyway, so it's quite a nice way of shaping a piece.
Definitely. The next thing I do in my analysis is put the, I've already written the text down, is put the natural word stresses in. So that would be part one of this exercise. O quam gloriosum est regnum, in quo cum Christo gaudent, omnes sancti, amictis stolis albis, sequuntur agnum, quocumque ierit. So that would be the natural word stresses that I'd mark in. I then, and this is all information that I'm going to feed through to the things later, on a point-by-point basis. So let's just look at that first idea. O quam gloriosum est regnum. I try and see whether Victoria's given me any clues. I've got 2 points of emphasis there. O quam gloriosum est regnum. Is Victoria giving me any clues to which might be more important, or are they both equal? What do we think when we look at that?
Well, the fact that the quam is homophonic perhaps gives it slightly more emphasis, perhaps.
So you're feeling at all quam? Yes, that's totally valid.
There's a high point on the it rises to on gloriosum.
Yeah, yes, there's a higher point at gloriosum, and there's also a suspension there which might just indicate that within this little idea, I think you're right, I think quam is important. O quam gloriosum est regnum. But the regnum possibly is a touch under the gloriosum in terms of the relative stresses. I know I'm being really nitpicky now, but in terms of how I shape it, what I don't want and what I see so often is, oh, quam gloriosum est regnum. No, it's more subtle than that. It's, oh, quam gloriosum est regnum. So within that one sentence, I've now worked out a little arch shape. Now, that is the key to what I so want to convey to my singers. We'll come on to how you teach this music then, but it's very important then to go through section by section. Let's have a look at the next one. What are your feelings about in quo cum Christo? What's Victoria sort of tugging? Why is he tugging at my sleeve and saying, do you know what, this is the most important syllable here for me? I think we should look at melismas. Quite literally, where does he spend the longest amount of time? What's coming out of you? Yes, in quo cum Christo. Quo cum Christo, that really is. So that again, I would, on my little map, I've got a special little sign. You can all make up your own sign, but it's like a little diamond shape. You can have a look at this later. So I've got all my in quo cum Christo, but I know when I come to teach it, that's what I need to embed into my own language, even when I talk about this section, that I'm always, whenever I say that word, it's going to be in quo cum Christo, so that the choir all the time is getting that sense that there's where the stress. Gaudent. It's clear that the first stress is that gaudent follows the shape of the word. Omnes sancte, omnes sancti. What do you think about that? Are there 2 words equal in terms of?
Well, it rises to sancti,
and it's longer.
Yeah, I think sancti is just on the edge of omnes. So therefore the shape of that little section is omnes sancti. Yeah. And again, looking at the harmonic language, which I think Victoria's very, very aware of, the harmonic rate of change and the excitement on the dissonance and resolution on the word sancti is far greater than on the word omnes. So that's just putting me towards that being my important point. Amictis stolis albis. Victoria, I think, makes this very clear. Yes, he's going for the white. He could have gone for any of those, I think. He could have gone for clothed, or stolis, or albis. It seems to me that he's gone for the white, so I should go for the white. Amictis stolis albis. It's just my instinct, purely of looking at the notes. It's so fascinating to look at them. And again, I'd say that the pitches in this music, especially if you do a lot of variety of music, the pitches are not the most gripping part of it for me. It's the level of rhythmic animation, the textures, the composers pulling out of ideas. It's important. Let's have a look at the next bit. Sequuntur arnium. What's he telling you about where his emphasis might be? Of those two words, where's the bigger? It's an interesting line, this, because it's descending.
The Melisbus on arnium in the Sopranos.
You've got this very clear.
And also arnium is a lamb.
Yes.
It just means following.
Sequuntur just means follow. The idea there that he's picked up this sense of following quite methodically down the scale, and then the arnium, at the end of the journey, at the end of the path, there is this incredible thing, but with a downward shape though. So I must park that there's almost a sense of reverence going on to the lamb. So yes, it's the climax of the phrase, Sequuntur arnium, but that word arnium, Victoria, for me, seems to have written that word shape in. So when I'm phrasing it, for example, the soprano line at the bottom of page 358, I wouldn't get my sopranos personally to fill that scale out. I would really get them to shade down on that word. Following the line, literally myself, in terms of their dynamics, which I don't really want to talk about. It's too boring. And the final thing, quocunque ierit. Where's the interest? Yeah. So wherever he should go is the interesting thing. The quocunque, I think, is very logistical. And then you get the lovely wandering part. So by just making those little observations, I've begun to get a real shape of the text and which words I should colour because of the clues. This is the important thing, I can't stress this more, that all the observations we've made have come out of the music. It's not that I've looked at the music and gone, I'd like a mezzo forte there, or I'd like some accents there. I haven't tried to superimpose onto this music anything that's not there. I've just looked at what's there, tried to get excited about what's there, and trying to form an interpretation that I think has integrity to the composer's intentions. We are never going to be able to produce an authentic performance. Peter's already referred to that, because we don't know how this music was done. There's lots of records, but we don't actually know we weren't there. But I think what we can do is get as truthful from our research and our thought, as truthful a performance as we can. And we could do this with 500 singers. It could still be a performance of truth and integrity if the ideas, if we've thought about them and we feel we're being true to the music. But the minute we overlay stuff, I think this music starts to fight us and just doesn't ring true. So that's a really, really important thing. How do I teach? So then decisions concerning the interpretation. Do you know, if I've truly done this work on the text, I don't have to decide much more. I know the shape, I know the key words, I make decisions as to then the colour of those words. Let's choose, gloriosum. I might make a decision as to the gl bit of that. Do I want to release the vowel very quickly? Or do I want a bit of quanglo? Do I just want to colour those consonants? So I'll take the key words that I've identified and make decisions as to the vowels and the colour of the consonants. And again, to try and bring out what Victoria's done. Other decisions I can make with this music, I think, are to do with the quality of the legato. I think it's fair to say this music is always legato, but then you can say that in my view all choral music is really legato. But I do think there are things we can do with the legato, and I think we can change the character of it. There is more to legato. If I were to narrow this down to 3 types of legato, absolutely more to sustained legato, which I fancy applying, for example, to the first idea as we go up to the gloriosum. I don't want any lumps in the line. Then there is a legato that is slightly more, I'd say, marked. If we go to the sequuntur idea, page 358. That descending scale, I could decide just to go secondo. I could just decide to make the legato a little heavier, and then go back to sustain for the argument. And I think there's a third type of legato. So we've got mega sustained, we've got slightly more marked, and there's a halfway house, which is a little more lifted. I might try that for the second idea in the piece. In quo concrete, in quo, those logistical words, I might just lift. Same for the last idea. Quo conque, I might just decide to lift that legato a little. There's nothing to do with staccato or anything. It's just, otherwise what we get are performances which are mega legato all the way through, and however beautiful they are, I'm not getting the different character of the different sentences in the music. And I think by slightly making subtle adjustments to the legato, one can just bring out the structure. But again, I wouldn't do this too aggressively. It's all legato, but there's legato and legato.
This lifting of the legato, and then would you carry that into Gaudium?
Well, I would, for there, yes, you can have go. No, I wouldn't, because it seems to me that I don't want go, I don't want that all articulated. Go, I really don't want that. Go, I want lovely flow there. So funny enough, not there. I personally don't like Renaissance performances where the sound is very choppy and where the line's very choppy. So when I say marked or lifted, that doesn't mean staccato or choppy.
So the in quo phrase.
Well, if we were saying in quo concrete, in quo, it might be that. Still legato as opposed to in quo, in quo, which would be the marked.
Yes.
Does that vaguely demonstrate the three extremes? There are many more types of legato than three.
Because just moving into I know you said not to listen to music and that recordings. I was preparing this last minute and I had to go to recordings, but that section of Gaudent seemed so murky in every recording.
Yes,
I heard.
well, this is the other thing to talk about, is the quality of tone and sound. So for that Gaudent, yes, it's really important that the line, because this music is so linear and it goes that way all the time, that the voice is, that we encourage our singers with a light voice to approach that word. They mustn't go, whoa, they mustn't clog it up.
Yeah.
This is why, controversial these days, because vibrato seems to be back in, well, it's not in for me. It depends who I'm working with, and it depends on the music, but it's not in for me with Vittoria. That's not to say I avoid it altogether, but at the point at which it starts clogging up the line and the line can't go forward, then I've had enough of it. So they have to lighten off the voice and keep the forward.
I think it's a common form of James Cole singers, is that they don't realise that the shorter the note, the lighter the voice must be. It really is as simple as that. Whatever you're singing, whether it becomes lifted and aspirated in baroque music or whatever. But I would find that singers always tend, particularly if it's in a forte facet, they always tend to put too much weight on the voice, so it slows down.
Yeah.
It clogs up the texture altogether. And I think the lightening it as distinct from aspirating is absolutely vital.
Yeah. In all of this, we haven't talked about dynamics, and I find that if I've gone through this process with the singers, explain the text, do you know the dynamics just emerge somehow from their understanding of what they're singing and the way I've talked about it. Because isn't it so tedious when somebody says, well, that idea is forte and that idea is mezzo piano. These terms are utterly redundant anyway. No, way more interesting to talk about, well, this section is more intense or richer coloured than the last. So you talk about the sections in terms that they can apply vocally. And it's a way more engaging piece, way to talk about it. Let's talk about how you teach this piece. Now, as you can tell from me rabbiting on, I honestly think with this music, because of the lack of instructions and the fact that the conductor has to do a lot of research, into it and analysis, is inevitably you have to talk. I really do think. And I wouldn't say that about Rossini or about nearly any other music where I get some instructions. But these ideas are very intellectual. The texts are not texts that our singers are necessarily familiar with. Especially these days, I think the more we do religious texts, the more we have to talk about them. You can't assume that anyone has seen pictures of lambs and the sacrificial lamb. This may be an image that nobody understands. So you just got to talk. But my aim in talking is to talk a hell of a lot in the front end of the rehearsals, and by the performance to stand there doing very little. So I find as a conductor that the front end is that I do a lot of shaping and stuff, and then towards the back end of the rehearsals, I really need to know that the singers have understood, and they could almost DIY that they probably could. If I were to fall under a bus, they'd just get on with it, because they would so profoundly understand the piece. That's what I'm aiming for. Of course, life kicks in, and that's not always what I achieve. But I think that's important. How do I teach it? I reveal the structure, so every singer knows where the start of a new idea is, regardless of whether it's in their voice part or not. They therefore know at that moment whether they've got to let that idea through or not. So they employ their own ears on that process. On a point-by-point basis, and we call these little sentences points, I often will chant. So I will say to I'll chant on one note. O quam gloriosum est Rei. And as I chant it, I'll sort of do extravagant, lofty shapes. And that way they get the stress themselves, and they're not worrying about notes. They're really just following the colour and the way I'm singing it. And I will absolutely do that on a point-by-point basis. Then when they go into their own parts, they've already marked up the stresses, they know where they go. I clarify again, as we've talked about, what kind of legato I want. But they tend to have got that then from the chant, the way I've chanted it. Conducting. We'll talk about what kind of decisions that you have to make in a minute. From a conducting point of view, what's my job? Well, interesting. As I say, I hope I've taught it well. Flow, constant, because the music goes that way. Forward motion, all the time. I tend to avoid a very rigid down in the shape. So it's difficult for me because my shapes tend to be pretty sideways anyway. I love sideways. I'm not a very vertical conductor. But I get even more sideways with this music, because what I don't want are these rigid downbeats all the time. The singers are working on their own word stresses, and every part has got those stresses at different times in the bar. So if I get a sense that the singers are syncopating against my beat, that's rubbish. I want them to put their own stresses in where they feel them happening. So I don't know about you, how you do it, Peter, but I'm just very this way and very undogmatic on the downbeat. Now, it's not to say I don't put shape in. If I feel that there's a 4, there will be vague 4-ishness going on.
Or the tenor,
but it's not going to be.
In the third bit, aren't they?
Well, that's the wrong way to look at it. You see that? Yeah. Don't think about it in those terms. Don't think about it as syncopated.
On 357.
You're thinking the
the omnes.
Yeah.
No, they're singing omnes.
Yes. They're singing omnes.
They're singing to different types of other people, but that's not syncopation.
Yeah.
That's their own line. That's political.
That's what I'm saying about not having it rigid. If I were to do this in 2, or then that's what I'm going to get. But if I said you're to stress omnes sancti, then, or whatever we said, omnes sancti, didn't we?
Yes.
I can't show that. I have to stand there and flow, and they have to apply their intelligence. This is where I think this music's important, and why so many academic choirs are attracted to it, if we're honest, because they can apply their own personal intelligence to shaping this, and that's wonderful. But if my beating is too vertical, I think I've had it.
I think also, one of the things is that this music comes from a time when everybody who sung this music would have sung a plain song version of it. they sing.
Yeah, that's
they came
true.
out of singing plain song, which comes entirely from the rhythm of the words. So the natural stress. So then, even if some of the notes are made longer, they're still going to stress as going to be second nature to them. I had a Palestrina choir. Palestrina choir sounds good. Palestrina is a lovely little city. It's the local church choir, and they're not very good, of course. But these poor people were made to sing in a lot of Palestrina motets in a very, very dry acoustic instead of in the lovely Dormo. But the thing about it was they're singing. It was not a good choir, but their singing of the lines of the Palestrina motets was just so natural. Right? It was horrible intonation. It was ghastly to listen to in so many ways, but also learned so much. The lines and the colour are fantastic. It was just second nature, even in the 20th century. They still come with Sorry.
No, absolutely. These are lines that happen to coincide rather than chordal, which so much are music is. Deciding whether my wafting, which I won't grace it with the term conducting, but whether my sideways wafting is going to have a 2 feel to it or a 4 feel to it. Again, I would say it's got nothing to do with the tempo of the piece, more to do with what the music looks like. That opening, if I were to do that in 4, it would feel like it's taking hours. So that automatically is saying to me, that opening, do you know what, I really need to have a sense of growth. This feels quite, 2 just strikes me there. Omne sancti, that feels like 2. You might say to me, well, what about the Gaudent? Again, as long as I choose a tempo where those quavers are not going to be rushed or too heavy, where they're just going to flow, then I've probably got it right. It is amazing how much of this music the tactus seems to fall between 60 and 80. It just does, for whatever reason. So decide what you're going to conduct by looking at not just the first passage, at several passages and getting the feel for it. Some people vary between 2 and 4. I find that a bit mucky, to be honest, but if you really feel a passage suddenly feels 4-like, then do it. The important thing with your conducting is to draw lines and encourage forward flow. What else do I do as a conductor? So we talked about flow. Well, I've made my decisions about who, well, they're not my decisions, Vittoria's decisions as to who comes in first. What I tend to do is just look at the first person to come in. So there's tenors coming in with that new in chord concusto. I will eye them up and I'll try with my beat. If I've decided that I want something a little more lifted, I'll try and just, on the bar of that is 1 and I'll just, with that upbeat, give them something a little more lifted to set the tone of the voice. So I'll let that hair run, and I'll hope to goodness that everyone else picks that up. So in other words, flow, 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 flow. Well, here's a new idea, a bit more lifted. Right, for this section, I'll just beat them a little more lifted away. What's the third section doing? Gaudent. Now, funny enough, I do want lightness and flow, so I'm going to lift my beat, and that first part just going to be very, very light. Quite fast on speed, but quite fluttery there. So I'm trying to look like the idea, in other words, and my attention is with the first part to have it. I can't conduct everyone, I don't do any cueing, I can't be bothered. I'll look at them, and I'll certainly look at that first part, because otherwise you do nothing but cue in polyphonic music, and that's a waste of your musical resources. So I wouldn't worry about cueing. You will say to me, oh, but my choir needs cues. You need to train them to be a little more self-reliant than that. So again, you might in rehearsal 1 give them a lot more help with your eyes, but you need to start knocking that out because they need to bring themselves and their intelligence and their character to the party. So I cue only with my eyes. Other things to think about with this music. How many singers should we have to a part? Well, lots of people will say you only should do this music with very small choirs. I disagree with them. Lassus in the Bavarian court apparently had 60 singers. So his pieces that he performed in that particular situation in his life would have been really quite stonking with 60 singers. Magdalen College Choir in Oxford in 1600 had 32 singers. You know, sometimes these choirs are much bigger than we assume. Now, a lot of those are big boys, obviously, but to balance even 20 boys, you know, you've got to have some chunky men around. So I would say the size of the choir doesn't matter, but the integrity of your interpretation, how you approach it, that does matter. So if you want to do, you know, I've done this with Harley Chorus, Wapping Grade Choir, this kind of music, you can still find something really, really beautiful in it. The tone, we've talked about that a bit, it's got to be forward moving, so anything in the voice that destroys line and that is too self-indulgent won't work. So I'm personally not keen on a lot of vibrato in this. That's not to say I don't want warmth and passion, I want all those things, but I don't want the line to start wobbling in a vertical way. Balance, we've talked about that. All parts are equal. Do you know, I don't know the right or wrong about this. Some parts of music is built on cantus firmus. That means that's a bit of chant, basically slowed down. This is like the underpinning. Some people will argue that part, if you ever see a piece like that part should be more pronounced. I'm not sure, because I think part of the point was that the composer liked to disguise it. So why bring it out if you then are trying to disguise it? I don't know what any of you think, those of you who perform.
I'm doing the Vittorio Requiem at the minute, and the cantus firmus is just, it's almost inconsequential. It's the scaffolding which everything else is built.
Yeah.
So you don't need to bring it out.
Because you know, they had that scaffolding because harmony hadn't yet been invented, and you know, key structures and all that. That was their scaffold. Later composers had different scaffolds on which they hung things. But I agree with that. Crescendo and decrescendo. We've 21st century conductors feel the need to have crescendos and decrescendos, I suppose. It seems to me that every musical point has its feel, has its mood, has a natural dynamic. I talked about shading down if I need a new idea to come through. That's not the same as a great long-winded decrescendo. Okay? So for me, the dynamics, if that's what you call them, are staggered in that there's that idea, that has that kind of feel, there's the next idea, and that has that sort of feel. So yes, there are differences between those two sections, but there's not a sense of decrescendo or crescendo necessarily. These are irrelevant terms. There is relative richness and relative changes in intensity, but I wouldn't talk about crescendo and decrescendo. That's not to say there's not shape. You know, sometimes, Vittorio, he's repeated the text a lot. Sequuntur arnium, sequuntur arnium. I would look in the repetitions to see whether he's playing with tessitura. Now, if one sequuntur arnium, if you look at it, actually, let's look at it, page 358, stop entry there, 47, starts on an E, and then the next time he gives that idea to the sops in 43, starts a tone lower. So it seems to me obvious that on that second repetition, I should just shade that down a notch. It's slightly less intense than the first time. Can you see that's not the same as saying I want you to decrescendo? It's saying on that repetition, something needs to happen. So these are not helpful terms to bandy about.
And very often they happen.
Yeah, they just happen anyway.
They're intrinsic in music.
Yeah. We do have a decision to make with very long notes at the end, the sopranos, and we'll often set this in the bass part. You know, if you were talking about Baroque music, you'd say this was a pedal. What do the sops do on that long note? Should there be a sense of decay? Should there be a sense of growth? What does anyone think?
It shouldn't ever stop the sound to feel like it's continuing. But it's very dangerous if singers see that sometimes, I think, and they just think, oh, it's an A, and they stop, and the sound dies. They sing the note, but there's no renewal of support, there's no engagement at the end of the note.
I think I colour it towards the cadence.
It's different because where's the direction? It seems to me that the tenors are still quite exciting, the basses are still quite exciting with this idea of following. And that whatever that is doing needs to support that. But equally, there is a move towards the cadence, so possibly in the penultimate bar, we might just get to that sense of resolution. That involves a slight shading down, possibly, unless you want to send this idea that they will follow wherever he goes and keep it rich and warm. You've got to decide what your emotional response is and also what's happening. So a bit of both.
Yeah,
I think support the voices until the tenors have stopped messing around, dancing around. And then there's for me, yes, there will be a point of just resolution. Again, it's not, these are the terms in which we need to talk. Rubato, no. But poise, going into a cadence, is different from rubato. That definitely. The one is revealing the structure of the piece, the other is superimposing. We'll often get in these pieces, won't we, a triple time section relating to a duple time. And I disagree with a lot of the suggestions in here. I can't now recall the piece, but often the relationships seem to me to need to be natural. So one of my favourites is if there were suddenly a triple time section in the middle of this, if I'm beating into, for me, the old minim becomes the new dotted minim. 1, 2, yum, dum, ba. That seems to me the easiest thing in the world. Perhaps I'm just blinking.
But that's not always the case, it depends on the original message.
Not always the case. It's not always the case.
Yeah.
But that seems to me the most natural thing in the world to do often at those moments. I think suddenly getting into a false 3 just feels all...
Well, sometimes it's just the 3-2 relationship, isn't it? And that's why it doesn't.
Yeah, we need to look at proper examples. The only suggestion I'd say is, again, look at the mood of the triple section. If the text is really dancey, then you do need to be thinking. And if the texture will allow it, one will probably be a better solution than a choppy 3. But it depends entirely on the piece. You have to assess it on a piece by piece. I'm just lazy. I always, in all my conducting, I'll look for the easiest connection often, because it seems to me the most natural one. People like Stravinsky will write very precisely, half a quaver equals, a third of the preceding minimum. By the time you've worked that out, you can't function anymore. But, nevertheless, he has at least worked out what you should do, so you haven't got to decide. Any other points? I've rabbited on long enough. Any other points about style and interpretation? Suspensions. Interesting. Yeah, because you could argue, this is such a big, so I'll get Peter to answer this as well.
Just naturally, it feels you should lean into them.
There is a very deliberate, well, is it deliberate? In some composers, you feel it's more of an accident of the linear lines. In other composers, and I think Vittorio's one of them, I think he did have a harmonic sense of tension in these. Their function, let's look at their function. We can look at the suspension emotionally, and this is how we often as 21st century people do it. We think, there's a bit of passion there, so I must enrich that. But actually, its function, pre-classical harmony, was just to create a point of tension which could then be released. In other words, to enable a sense of forward motion. And to create a bit of a, I'm talking nonsense now, but at a point of cadence, there's that moment of tension which is then released into the cadence, and that is calm only because of the tension that you've had before it. Now, if I overblow that and think, there's an emotional intent behind that suspension as well, that might mean that I slow up that cadence more. Do you see? The one is simply a harmonic function of here's a cadence, bit of tension and then release. And the other attitude of mind is, here's a fantastic scrunch harmonically. So I must perhaps slow up a bit into it and overblow it and treat it like a piece of Verdi, not to use suspensions all that richly. It's an attitude of mind. For me, my priority is the forward flow of the music. So I'm not going to allow those suspensions to get so to slow up the forward flow. I think that's the important thing. They are tools that the composer had to change tension and to change periods of tension release. I don't know. Is that nonsense? Who knows? Who knows? In this music, it's interesting. A lot of it is chord, 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 and then cadence, suspension, cadence. Chord, 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 suspension, cadence. In other pieces like the Vittoria Requiem, which Mark is doing, you do get the feeling, possibly, that there are more suspensions piling up, like Versa Est looked at.
Oh, yes.
You know, that's one suspension piling up after another, and you get a sense that, there is a sense of passion behind Victoria's choice, with the tessitura as well. The way the climax of this piece, get to know it if you don't know, but it builds up and up and up, and the texture spreads at its fattest moment extraordinarily, and there's harmonic tension in it. So you do get a sense that the composer is using suspensions for an emotional reason. So, yeah, logistical or emotional, or possibly in that case a bit of both. I haven't answered that question because I actually can't answer it coherently. It's a mixture of both. I think, sorry, just to wrap it on one more. If it's a logistical suspension, don't overdo it. So perhaps this is all connected to our analysis of text.
Well, I think, I mean, when we're talking about Victoria, when we're talking late Renaissance, we're verging on the Baroque, and it's got this more functional harmony beginning to happen, and it's a very natural way of leading into a cadence. And sometimes in earlier music, then it's very much a sort of accident, as you say, rather than a harmonic sense. And I don't think you should overdo it anyway. In this sort of music, doesn't need to be aware and lean on it in a colour, and certainly not in a rhythmic sense. You don't want to lose the flow. Maybe a little more colour. I mean, it depends on the person. Singers will do it fairly naturally too. Anyway, won't they? They'll lean into if you've got a group of good singers who are used to singing polyphonic music, then they're going to hear these and enjoy them without. Well, actually, no, my altos would overstate like that. but they get the feeling of where it's going. But it doesn't stop the flow. It doesn't stop the whole movement, except at a cadence point. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one needs to be aware of what's happening, but not, it's a result of what's happening rather than the big moment here. But as you said, sometimes the text tells you that he's using it for a very specific emotional impact. Yeah. I think you applied your common sense to the relationship to the text and everything as you go along with this music, and let it happen.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I've got to say about this piece. The end. We could just sing it through. I don't really want to conduct it. We could sing it through, perhaps with an awareness of some of those ideas, just to say we do some music. Simon, perhaps I'll look at Simon, he's been waiting patiently.
Surely not.
We didn't have a copy because I lent it to Phil.
Sorry, okay.
Should we stand and just sing it in a circle? Just so that. I'm going to sing tenor. You say you sing it soft. I can't sing soft. Good. Alto. Got an alto. Lovely. Lovely. Should we do it unconducted, because that'd be really nice, and we'll just feel in with some of the ideas that we've talked about. all by yourselves. What are we there for?
Well, that's what we should be aiming for with this
All
music
the time.
particularly.
All the time.
Well, actually, through anything else music.
Yeah.
I mean, well, we've talked before about gesture, about rehearsal gesture, performance gesture. But that's what we should be aiming to. In that sort of music, you start it off and you finish it. Really, if that.
Lovely rehearsing this in a circle. I've seen, went to a lovely workshop with the 16 where they have a Genesis 16 project where young singers are trained. And the first thing, well not the first thing, after a bit of work, where he made them all stand in a circle but facing out. And they had, after they talked a lot about the ideas, they then had to sing and just use their ears and listen without even the visual clues of breathing, just really feel it. And I thought, what a lovely way, to work, and because that's developing independence, it's developing fantastic listening. And it was just so enjoyable for everyone, because every singer then takes responsibility for the shaping, and a beautiful, beautiful way to do it.
I'm going to throw one more thing in the book about rehearsal. I've never tried it myself, I've never dared with my choir. That's something I saw with Thomas Varsary in Hungary, working with a youth orchestra, where he started the rehearsal with a 5-minute silence meditation. I'd love to do that in my choir. It would be absolutely impossible.
My choir would turn up 5 minutes later.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't warn them. I'd just do it. But but actually, I thought,
It's a long time.
this is a long time for young people.
The National Youth Orchestra do that for a minute,
Yeah.
not
Well, I mean, it's a really good thing, and the concentration that came out was very, very impressive. And I'd certainly do it with a younger choir, not 5 minutes. I think it's a really good
I've certainly use silence, when things aren't going terribly well, and you just feel nobody's really with you for whatever reason, and that you're not doing terribly well yourself either. And I found a very interesting technique of getting the choir just to watch. So they follow the music in their scores, but I'll conduct the whole piece and nobody's making any sound. But there's something lovely happens to the relationship between them and me, because they can properly watch, and you can start being able to take people on lovely journeys, and then they get, right, that's what you meant when you talked about that, because they can properly see it. So it's a lovely thing, like a special technique to bring into rehearsal when you feel that you're losing things. It brings everyone back.
It might be the only time they're looking.
Yeah, indeed. But at least that's 5 minutes is better than no minutes. So.
Similarly, well, not similarly at all, but the World Youth Choir, they used to use, before a concert, one of the section leaders would do the warm-up. And then the final one, at the end of the tour, a long hot tour, very, very hot tour, the last warm-up before the last concert, the guy who did it did a silent warm-up. He told them the exercise, and everybody thought about it.
Oh wow!
So of course, as they, he demonstrated the exercise, so they're taking the shape, they're thinking through it, but they're not actually using the voices.
Oh wow!
And I thought it worked very, very well.
Yeah, gosh.
Really, really well. Worth the try.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Do we want to look at Palestrina, or are we going to do it?
Or else we could go back to playing a game, one of the games I didn't play this morning. We should play a game. We had enough of Renaissance music. Well, Palestrina. Okay, let's look at Palestrina. Page 270, because I haven't looked at
Can we have
Palestrina.
both? Can we have the game?
Oh, I don't know. So, you're going to do more of this analysis, because I haven't really prepped this one so much. Sicut cervus desideret ad fontes aquarum. Somebody tell me what that actually means. Does anyone know?
I don't know what fontes mean, but otherwise it's as the heart, the hair. desires the water.
The fountain.
Yeah, see, that's not literal enough.
Fountain water.
So just as,
Fontes is fountains.
yeah, just as seeker the hair, the heart, the deer, desiderat, desires. It ad fontes implies desires to be at, I think, the fount of water. So just as the heart desires to be near, next to the fount of water. Next bit of text. This is amazing, isn't it? This goes on for 2 pages. It's obviously, if going on this little map analysis, we'll be into many, many bars there. Where's the next idea start, anyone?
Yeah, 22, 23.
Yeah. Ita desiderat.
So,
But the musical idea, there's one idea for ita desiderat, and there seems to be a separate idea for animal male. So ita desiderat.
so desires.
So desires, yes, and that goes on for ages. Then the new idea, anima mea, part 40, mind, the soul of mind.
So on mine, you've got
Yes, so desires the soul of mind, ad te, to be near you, quite literally, to be near you, Lord, anima. So this is much simpler text, clearly divisible into portions, and we've got far fewer ideas, far fewer musical ideas. Tell me something about the quality. If we just sing through the opening, or have a look at the opening 10 or 9, where do we think, if we're thinking about word stresses, we've got sicut cervus desiderat ad fontes aquarum, where do we think any of those stresses that Victoria might have thought were the most important? Or have we got several playing here? Any instincts?
Palestrina.
Yeah.
Cervus aquarum, for me, I think. Perhaps the desiderat.
The cervus has got a little, haven't it? Sicut is all on one, so that's boring. Sicut cervus, just a little bit. Desiderat seems to me.
I think probably in order, cervus desiderat aquarum, and then that's.
You missed that Fontes.
The fontes, we've got fontes. It seems to me, of all of those ideas, that Victoria has stressed aquarum more. So we've got several little peaks here. Sicut cervus desiderat ad fontes aquarum. Is it just me that thinks that? Or, no, if you look at the soprano line as well, you look at fontes aquarum. Yeah. So, yes, I've got little peaks, but there's one big one in terms of how I shape that. Now, if we just all played that 10 line, sang that 10 line, right? If I were teaching it, I might teach it something like this. Firstly, in a plain chanty way. Sicut cervus desiderat ad fontes aquarum. And I get you to respond.
Sicut cervus desiderat ad fontes aquarum.
And I'd do that several times, and then we'd sing it together.
Sicut cervus desiderat ad fontes aquarum.
Lovely, and I'm sure it was in tune as well. That's roughly how I would teach that. And then once everyone's got that and really feeling that beautifully, then we go into our part. Now, Palestrina spends a lot of time on this idea, so does he decide to do anything with it? Anyone got any observations on how he's using the repetitions? Are they just the same, or...
Well, that is it, because the alto entry comes down to 2 bars, but the soprano entry comes down to 1.5 bars after the alto.
Yes, but I sort of meant in terms of every voice part has that text more than one time. They articulate that text more than one time. So on the second or the third articulation,
aqua has more emphasis.
It does in the sop part. Let's just check it out, see whether that's across the board. Yeah, the tenor aquarum goes on and on and on. No, but the bass line exactly is very interesting at 19, because actually Palestrina, even Palestrina, breaks away from his formula and gives the bass line something quite chunky on Desiderat, which we haven't had before. So I might just bring that little line out without destroying the aquarum emphasis that we've had. In other words, the soprano's second sicut, I might decide to make that a little richer, a little warmer than the first time they have it. And that would probably, if I said to every voice part, we could put this idea twice. Give the second one a little more.
It's a thinner texture the first time.
It's slightly thinner, more close texture, and just opening out the registers a little more warmly, especially with the bass coming down. The alto part also is working around the houses and exploring a greater depth there. So it might just imply to me that the second articulation should be a little warmer. Ita desiderat. Any observations about where the key syllables are there?
Yeah.
He spends a long time on the E-tar as well, though, doesn't he? Sitting on that note for a long old time. The desiderat is more voluptuous, but there's some sort of lean going on there. So just as the heart does this, therefore, or just as much, I desire. I have that desire. E-tar, I might do something with that in terms of the forcefulness of the onset on that. E-tar, just tiny little, to talk about glottals, but a little more lean in the voice on that. E-tar desiderat. E-tar desiderat. And then we've got anima mea, ad te Deus. Are these ideas connected, or is there one idea for anima mea and a second idea for ad te Deus? What do you think?
I'd say they're connected because ad te Deus returns up to the part of anima mea.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. That descending line on anima mea, very logistical descending stepwise line, and then the ad te Deus, a little more animation, especially when you turn over the page and look at the tenor Deus there. Anima mea, ad te Deus. It seems to me that I might make the musical decision to animate the legato on ad te Deus. Ad te Deus, I might just lift it a little rather than ad te Deus, make that non-so sustained. These are just decisions you have to make, but
yeah, and that descending phrase on anima, there's a very yearning quality about it.
Yes.
Because, and also the harmonically, it's always to suspension or up.
yes, it does.
Yeah.
Anima mea, ad te Deus. Yes, it's got a slight bleeding onto the word Deus there. And then we've got repetitions in the line. What is Palestrina doing with those? Is he doing anything with them? Not necessarily, actually. I can't see. So it would imply to me, therefore, if I can't see the composer obviously doing stuff, that I shouldn't mess around with that. I should just let these repetitions play out. That will be the most truthful thing to do with the score. It's funny, this piece, I don't know why I chose it really, because the minute I look at it, I think, I wish I was doing Vittoria. This is so much more interesting to me than Palestrina.
There's a sort of sterile polyphony, I think, of Palestrina.
I mean, bless
I think it's not
clean.
so much. I think it's not so much sterile. I think that's a hard word. But it's more remote. He is more remote. He's less. He's less emotionally involved in the text.
Yeah.
But he gives you plenty. Equally, he gives you plenty of text. There's great characterization of the text in a very
soft,
relaxed
yeah,
way.
yeah.
But he gives you plenty of time to hear it as well. And it's almost as if the music pours up more on the phrases extended. So it's not the same. I personally would always want to conduct a story around Palestrina because of the emotional response, particularly some big rich pieces. But this is very, very elegant, and I think it's a remoteness rather than a sterile quality. It's a detached, and improving. I think. But it's very lovely. And incidentally, there's a textual thing here, and that is a comma. The vocative comma ante deus, and that comma must be ignored at all costs. But you do find people like she who say, "Oh, there's a comma, so that must be ante deus," which is a difference. But it happens, so just work on. So always watch out for these vocative commas. They're a pain in the butt.
What's a vocative comma?
Oh God, the word God is going up. So Richter, mich Gott, Richter, God, all over the place. Commas, nonsense. Go with musical flow, not with commas. Sorry.
No, not at all. So I can't think of a great deal to do with this piece. I would, if I were looking at it quickly, I would have it molto legato opening, keep the legato, the desiderata, have a little lean on Peter, and Peter suggests the anima mea, a little more longing there, and I think my only change in the quality of the legato would be for this ad ed or a little lift in the line, just for that, and then keep it quite warm. I wouldn't have great shading down. The Palestrina doesn't seem to indicate that to me, so I don't want to superimpose that on it. And keep it simple and keep it uncomplicated. So yeah, shall we sing it through and just? Yes.
Question. I think as I've seen Curtis and Inquires get completely nuts about this, and I suspect it's more an editorial question. For places like bar 30 in the alto line, there's a repeated C in the third beat.
Yeah.
And some people feel very strongly you should restart that note every station. I suspect in the original edition it's just one note, it's there for layout clarity.
I don't make a great fuss of these things. I don't know what's right or wrong. I just personally don't make a great fuss of it.
I know, without looking at the original text, I absolutely agree with you. It's slightly lifted, but not actually. Not vocative.
That's what I would do instinctively. I've just seen people get very angry about it.
They do.
There's a problem or aspirate on it as well sometimes when the resound goes. Right.
Yeah.
Just lightly touch. Lightly touch.
Should we sing it through and just...
Who's the answer? Yep.
Oh, yes, I'm going to turn it to. So I'm not going to start it, we're just going to start it somehow. Actually, should we do the 16th thing? This is going to be very interesting starting. Cheers.
Sarah,
Okay, so just before we break for lunch, can I introduce to you, for those of you who haven't yet had a council meeting yet, but have been in touch with her regularly, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, who is our training manager. I'm delighted to join you again. Good to have you, Elizabeth.
I need my map. Everything you need to know about Renaissance.
And we're afraid to ask that. So if the chair, if maybe now is a good time to put the first tent in the middle back, and then go and have lunch. Leave the black chairs there. If we're going to start probably at 2, it'd be a really good idea if everybody was back by 10 to. Oh yes. Actually, it doesn't really matter. Well, good luck to me.
It's how long we've got.